Now, if we're going to look at government here, and of course I'm going to come to this in much more detail after a bit. In contrast to the way government developed through kings and barons and then through, well, I won't go through all the hierarchies, you know them, how history has developed. We get contrary calls for independence, for regionalization, for more attention to the city. Now, I'm well aware that these things are very much in the minds of Mexicans. I'm very well aware, especially, that the Constitution provides for the financing of the municipality in Mexico to a tune which they don't never experience by a very, very long way. So these issues are contrary issues to the pressing down of power from above. And I want you to remember what I said about autopoiesis, which is the system that is making itself. How about that? I think that's a pretty good example. Now, when we come to management, which I will discuss in much more detail shortly, but still speaking within this total framework of reductionism and its possible contraries, I want to point out something to you that's very, very serious indeed about the way we run our affairs. It is that once you've got a reductionist model of what you're doing, once you have said the welfare of the people consists of education, of health, of welfare, etc., once you said this company is divided into these divisions, once you said we do production, sales, engineering, etc., these are all reductionist models, and they all have tremendous benefits, and they all have tremendous disadvantages. But the logical thrust of this blackboard is telling us that you can't think about anything any longer except in these terms. We have constructed models which have trapped us. We are trapped inside the model. Let me try and explain the serious practical importance of what I'm saying. If you try to produce a plan for an organization, it's forced to be expressed in terms of that organization, which is in terms of the whole reductionist thing that's gone into it. Now, you see, the future that you are planning for might have to be quite different from the way things are now. That's usually the case. But you have no way of expressing it, just as in Gödel's theorem. You can't present the management with a plan that has no relation to their perception of what the organization is. It wouldn't make sense. They'd kick you out. Have done. And I would even like to mention that in things like artificial intelligence and expert systems, which we're paying a lot of attention to, again, we have to note that they are being expressed in terms of all of this. Because what is an expert? An expert is someone who knows how all this works. So it's precisely his job. Now, these matters inhibit change. And when change comes, as it is coming, as I began by saying, in a very big cascading fashion across the world in every field, and if we are only armed with out-of-date models that cannot adapt, we're in very big trouble. I think one of the things that most worries me is the notion of independence. This one, which everybody is now very serious about, does not just mean freedom in the sense of doing anything you like, because that results in chaos. And we have a nice new piece of mathematics now by our side in the shape of Prigogine's work, René Thom's work. Mathematicians here? No? Well, we do. We have a lot of new work that deals with a turbulent environment. And by God, we've got a turbulent environment, and we need to seize those mathematical tools and replace some of these old tools. I mean, the mathematical tools that we used here in this stage of the game, namely largely differential calculus, is as reductionist as you can get. And when we first started thinking in cybernetics about the nature of intelligence, using that, well, you can write a differential equation that goes out and out and out, and it looks good, but you cannot quantify the transfer function. Whether you look inside the brain to do it and the way cells are behaving, or you look behaviorally as a psychologist at the way black boxes of rats are behaving, or people for that matter, you get stuck with this same inability to focus on a new way of looking at things. Now, I want today to focus on a new way of looking at things. A way that we cannot deduce from this, because that's abandoned us to a reductionist approach, but a way which I think we can deduce from this, which is the alternative routes of handling human affairs. I'm arguing that we need a new way of entry and a new model to deal with all of this. And I'm going to try and suggest one to you. In the absence of that, what we've got is a culture in which people wish to address the problem of change by, for instance, training. They say, well, we must train everybody. You know, education, training, then it'll all be all right. Another trick is to say, well, let's reorganize. But how? They say, well, we're free now. You know, we've got our independence, we can do it as we like. But can we? Because we're trapped in all this. Now, I've got here a statement I want to read to you, which you may have heard before, about training and reorganization. And it says, we trained hard, but it seemed that every time we were beginning to form up into teams, we would be reorganized. I was to learn later in life that we tend to meet any new situation by reorganizing, and a wonderful method it can be for creating the illusion of progress while producing confusion, inefficiency, and demoralization. Well, this was written by Petronius in 210 BC. I thought that might amuse you. It amuses me. Here we are, we're still in the same situation.